अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं अफजाल उस्मानी अलीगढ़ अलमनाई एसोसिएशन वाशिंगटन डीसी की जानिब से आप सभी लोगों का तहे दिल से खैर मकदम करता हूँ। प्रोग्राम का बाकायदगी से आगाज़ करने के लिए सुफियान साहब को होना था, लेकिन वो सफ़र में है इसलिए है नहीं, तो मैं तिलावत कलाम पाक से इस प्रोग्राम का आगाज़ करता हूँ। औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम, बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम, वल अस्र इन्नल इंसाना लफ़ी खुस्र इल्लल लज़ीना आमनू व अमिलुस सालिहाति व तवासौ बिल हक़्क़ि व तवासौ बिस सब्र। सदक़ल्लाहुल अज़ीम। मैं सबसे पहले बाकायदगी से आगाज़ करने के लिए हमारे सीनियर डॉक्टर सैयद आमिर साहब से दरख्वास्त करता हूँ कि आज के प्रोग्राम की सदारत कबूल फरमाएं। जनाब सैयद आमिर साहब। आमिर भाई इजाज़त हो तो मैं प्रोग्राम शुरू करूँ? आप अनम्यूट कर लें।
नहीं, पहले म्यूट था तुम्हारा।
नहीं, अनम्यूट था, अनम्यूट हुआ है।
जी आमिर भाई थे तो
आमिर
भाई मैं प्रोग्राम शुरू करूं? मैं
नहीं, म्यूट हो गया, म्यूट हो गया।
आमिर भाई जस्ट जॉइन।
उठा लेगी दोनों।
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आमिर भाई। मैं अफजाल उस्मानी एक बार फिर अलीगढ़ अलमनाई एसोसिएशन वाशिंगटन डीसी की तरफ से आप सभी लोगों का तहे दिल से खैर मकदम करता हूं। जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि हम लोग ये अलीगढ़ मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी के सेंटेनियल सेलिब्रेशन मना रहे हैं और 1920 में कायम शुदा यूनिवर्सिटी आज अपने 100 साल पूरे कर चुकी है। उस सिलसिले की ये दूसरी कड़ी है। पिछले हफ्ते इनाग्रेशन हो चुका था, आज हमारे दूसरी कड़ी का प्रोग्राम है। और अलीगढ़ अलमनाई एसोसिएशन वाशिंगटन डीसी 1975 से कारगर है वाशिंगटन डीसी मेट्रोपॉलिटन एरिया में, और बहुत सारे फलाही काम में जो है ज़ोर शोर से शामिल है। स्कॉलरशिप का प्रोग्राम है, फीडर इंस्टीट्यूशंस को सपोर्ट का प्रोग्राम है, और इस बार कोविड की वजह से कोविड के रिलीफ के भी काम हमने किए हैं। और इन सब की तफसीलात आपको हमारी वेबसाइट aligarhdc.org पे मिल जाएगी। मैं बहुत ज़्यादा वक्त नहीं लूँगा और मैं इसके बाद आज के प्रोग्राम को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए मैं दरख्वास्त करूँगा हमारी सीनियर डॉक्टर हाशमा हसन साहिबा से कि प्लीज़ वो स्टेज पर आएँ और इस प्रोग्राम को आगे बढ़ाएं। डॉक्टर हाशमा हसन साहिबा।
Assalamu alaikum, good morning and namaskar. It is a pleasure for me today to introduce our distinguished guest, Dr. Shahid Jamil, an internationally acclaimed virologist. Dr. Jamil is the director of Trivedi School of Biosciences at the prestigious Ashoka University in Haryana, India. On his appointment, Mr. Ashok Trivedi, founder and trustee, said, with one of the world's leading virologists, Dr. Shahid Jamil, as the director of the Trivedi School of Biosciences, I'm confident that the school will put India on the global map of advanced research in synthetic biology, infectious diseases, chronic diseases, and advanced computing technologies. Dr. Jamil is the ex-CEO of Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance. Known for his research in hepatitis E virus, he is an elected fellow of all the three major Indian science academies, namely National Academy of Science, India, Indian Academy of Sciences, and Indian National Science Academy. The Council of Scientific and Industrial Research awarded him the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize for Science and Technology in 2000. He is a member of Guha Research Conference, as well as the American Society for Microbiology. And the award orations delivered by him include the Dr. M.R. Das Memorial Lecture of the Indian National Science Academy. I have known Shahid since he was a young man through his parents, Dr. Abdul Majid Siddiqi and Dr. Jamila Aleen, both of whom were professors at Aligarh Muslim University. I first met him in Baltimore at the home of his sister, Dr. Afshan Hashmi, who is also an AMU alumni, a scion of a distinguished AMU family, whose grandfather, Dr. Abdul Aleem, was a renowned scholar and former Vice Chancellor of AMU. I can think of no one better than Dr. Shahid Jamil to kick off the lecture series of our Centennial celebrations with this talk. Today, Dr. Jamil will give us a flavor of the rich history of science education at AMU over the last 100 years. It was the vibrant science culture of AMU that drew me from Lucknow University to the physics department in 1968 to pursue an MSc degree. In 1969, AMU was one of the first universities in India to get a computer center, and I had to learn computer programming from a book, as none of the faculty members in the physics department had used computers. Those were the kinds of challenges the professors presented to their students to keep them competitive at the international level. I would say that AMU was also a leader in the science education of women. Abdullah Women's College prepared girls for higher education in the pure sciences, engineering, and medicine. The university saw increasing enrollment of women in all these fields. AMU made it possible for women like Talat Ma in 1972 to win the competitive Commonwealth Scholarship to pursue a doctorate in chemistry at Cambridge University, UK, and for me a year later at Oxford University, UK in theoretical physics. I would now like to invite Dr. Shahid Jamil to present the talk, 100 Years of Science at AMU, a personal reflection. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Shahid Jamil.
Thank you very much, Ashma, for the very kind introduction. And I would also like to thank the Aligarh Alumni Association of Washington, D.C. for this distinct honor. I hope I'm able to do justice in the next 40 minutes or so. My disclaimer to this talk is that these are my personal reflections. I have tried to be as historically correct as possible, going to the sources. But at the end of the day, these may be my biases. With that, let me share my screen and start my presentation. I hope my screen is visible.
Why? Please put on presentation. Good.
I think somebody else is coming in the way.
Try again.
Some other participant is sharing their screen.
Okay.
Showing Habibullah, SM Habibullah's screen.
Sorry, who's that?
I don't know.
Can we stop it from here or?
Can you give me the host rights so that I can share my screen?
Yeah, you had a co-host because I could see your screen.
You're fine. I stopped it. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Shahid bhai, try again.
Can you see now?
Yes.
But it is not in presentation mode.
I'm going to presentation mode. Is it in
Yes,
presentation
perfect.
mode?
Perfect.
Yeah, good,
Perfect.
good to go.
Okay, wonderful. So 100 years of science at AMU, and as I said earlier, these are my personal reflections. If you look at the faculties at AMU, AMU has 13 faculties at this time. And if I see how many of these faculties do science teaching and research, there are 6 faculties that directly do science teaching and research. Those are the faculties of agriculture sciences, medicine, life sciences, engineering and technology, and Unani medicine. AMU therefore presents the ideal opportunity for different kinds of people different kinds of scientists to come and work together. It also gives the opportunity for social scientists to get involved in science-based issues, as also people in faculties of management and law. So AMU really presents a very, very comprehensive environment for collaboration. How much of that happens is a matter of question and concern, and I will come to that towards the end of my talk. So let me begin by sharing some snippets of history of science at AMU. Let's start from the top. Vice chancellors who were men of science. And the person who really attracts the most attention is Sir Ziauddin Ahmad, who was VC for 3 terms between 1934 to 1946. Ziauddin Ahmad was a mathematician. He was a logician, philosopher, educationist, and a parliamentarian. He won in 1895, at the undergraduate level, he won the Strachey Medal at AMU. And then in 1904, he won the Sir Isaac Newton Scholarship at Cambridge. He was the first Indian to have done so. He became a fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society and the Royal Mathematical Society. Sir Shah Suleiman was VC from 1938 to 41. He was an amazing person who had cleared the Cambridge Mathematical Tripos in 1909, and the next year he cleared the law tripos. He practiced law and he became the Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court, but he also practiced theoretical physics and mathematics, and I will show you in a minute. The next one came many, many years later in the form of Professor Muhammad Naseem Farooqi, who was an electrical engineer from IIT Kanpur. Naseem Saab started computer engineering and the Center for Telematics and Research at AMU. And the next person who came from the world of science was Professor P.K. Abdulaziz. From 2007 to 2012, he was an ecologist and marine biologist, professor at the University of Kerala and VC of the Cochin University of Science and Technology before he arrived at Aligarh. During his time, the academic rankings of AMU improved considerably, and he was responsible for starting AMU centers in Mallapuram, Murshidabad, and Kishanganj. Now back to Sir Shah Suleiman. When Sir Shah Suleiman died in 1941, his obituary in Nature was written by no other than C.V. Raman, who had won the Nobel Prize in 1930. So C.V. Raman was already a Nobel laureate, and he writes the obituary for Shah Suleiman. In the obituary, he says that Sir Shah Suleiman's published papers indicated a marked reluctance to accept the ideas of new physics. And this new physics was really quantum physics, which was being brought forward by people like Einstein. So Sir Shah Suleiman was still doing classical physics and never really accepted this idea of quantum physics. But nevertheless, in his own way, a giant in the field. Let me start with departments, mathematics. Teaching of mathematics started when Mayo College started. And the most illustrious of those teachers was Babu Jadav Chandra Chakravarti, or J.C. Chakravarti, who served Mayo College from 1988 to 1916. In 1910, 3 professors were appointed in mathematics. Chakravarti was one, his student Ziauddin Ahmad was another, and M.A. Aziz was the third one, and 1 lecturer was appointed at that time. Remember, this was still in college. In 1910, this group focused on astronomy, history of mathematics, and theory of functions. In 1920, when Mayo College became AMU, the Department of Mathematics was established, and really a glorious period was in the early 1930s when André Weil was brought to AMU by Sir Ross Massoud. He was a French mathematician who was awarded with the Wolf Prize and the Kyoto Prize and became an FRS much later. He spent 2 years at Aligarh and he recruited people like Didi Kosambi. Kosambi, besides being a mathematician, a statistician, was also an expert in many European languages. In the 2 years that he spent at Aligarh, he wrote 8 research papers, and his research papers were in Italian, French, and German. So that's how versatile he was. Kosambi was also hired in 1945 by Homi Bhabha as the first faculty member at Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, which started in 1945. Coming to physics, which is Hashma Appa's department. The teaching of physics started again in Mayo College by H.B. Duncliffe in 1912, became a department in 1920, produced the first PhD in 1926. The period of 1912 to 1922 was headed by Chaudhry Wali Muhammad, who was a student of J.J. Thomson. And J.J. Thomson, you will recall, was doyen of spectroscopy. And Chaudhry Wali Muhammad started a spectroscopy group, which also included people like Rudolf Samuel, who was recommended to come to AMU by none other than Einstein, by a brilliant man named R.K. Asundi, who was as versatile in physics as he was in Indian philosophy and the Kannada language. They were joined by other people, Venkateswarlu, Dasari. Professor Dasari died recently. He was a PhD student of Asundi in 1960. Then from Aligarh, he went to start the physics department at IIT Kanpur, moved to MIT, where he headed the spectroscopy lab. I.H. Asmani joined and R.M. Chaudhary joined after PhD with people like Niels Bohr and Rutherford. And they both went on to play very important roles in the setting up of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission after partition. Who can forget Professor Rais Ahmed, who was the chairman of NCRT and really changed school education in India. The physics department has various specializations today and participates in international collaborations at a very large scale. Here are some old pictures I found of the physics department in 1925, when with Chaudhry Wali Muhammad, you can see sitting third from left, and also the department in 1933, where you can see Samuel and you can see Asundi. Coming to chemistry, where many of us in the audience here studied, chemistry teaching was established in 1911 at Mayo College by Duncliffe. 1926, the building foundation was laid by Nawab Hamidullah Khan of Bhopal. Till 1929, people like Mr. Allah Bakhsh, Colonel Haider Khan, Mumtaz Appa's husband, H.B. Kroll and Qasim Ali Mansouri were in the department. In the early 1930s, Hunter and Desai established the organic chemistry, and the first PhD in organic chemistry from the department was Dr. Omar Farooq in 1934. Dr. A.R. Khidwai joined in 1951, and he started an MSc course in biochemistry, also established a unit in the Tibia College, and he started the units of analytical and inorganic chemistry. 1994, industrial chemistry was added. There are many notable teachers, some of whom I have listed here. And the chemistry department boasts one of the biggest seminar libraries of any department in in the university. Here is a list of some of the papers that people from the department published, and you can see that they published papers in some of the best journals in the early part of in the first half of the 20th century, places like Nature, JACS, Journal of Organic Chemistry, and so on. Botany is also one of the older departments on campus, established in 1923 with Professor Hadi Hassan as the first chairman. Postgraduate teaching started in 1930. The building was funded by the Nizam of Hyderabad, and research started in 1932 under the direction of Dr. Rafiq Ahmad Khan. There were many other notable teachers in the department, some of whom I have listed here. Many illustrious alumni, including Obaid Siddiqi, Asad Ahmad, Pushpa Gandham, Aslam Parvez, Rajiv Varshni, and so on. And again, botany has many other different divisions today. Zoology was established in Mayo College in 1906. 1922, it was established as a separate department with Chairman Muhammad Sharif. Thereafter came Inayat Ali Khan and Muhammad Babar Mirza, who was chairman for 31 years of zoology. During this time, M.A.H. Qadri was sent to do PhD in Cambridge in entomology, and M.A. Basir in parasitology from McGill. Again, some very illustrious teachers. I will not say everyone's name, and also some very illustrious alumni have come from this department. Again, this department has many specializations. Geology was established in 1946, undergraduate teaching, and 51 postgraduate teaching. P.N. Ganju, who headed the department from 1950 to 62, started coal petrology, and it was the first lab of on-coal petrology in India. This department has been led by doyens of Indian geology, some of whose names are here. The department even today is the headquarters of the Indian Association of Sedimentologists. And again, some very illustrious alumni and a lot of thrust areas. And just to lighten the mood, I have put something that many of us may have seen on the walls of geology department. One is this, and the other is that old Muhammad Rafi song, Patthar se dil lagaya or dil pe chot khai. Biochemistry in AMU started as a MSc special paper in the 1950s. And in 1963, when my father, Dr. Abdul Majid Siddiqi, came back after his PhD from University of California, he initiated MSc, MPhil, and PhD in biochemistry. In 1986, there was a separate department of biochemistry given by UGC and a new faculty of life sciences, and Professor Siddiqui became the first chairman and the first dean of life sciences. Again, many notable teachers and many research areas that the department covers today. And some of you may find a younger yourself in this picture that I have from the 1970s. I can see Fazal Bhai here, and I can see Zafir Bhai and a few others. Biotechnology was established in 1985 through an ordinance. Professor Abdul Salam laid the foundation in 1986. In 87, there was a semi-autonomous unit for interdisciplinary teaching, which is today called the Interdisciplinary Biotechnology Unit. In 1990, it started an MSc program with support from DBT. And Professor Salahuddin was really the founder of this unit, this center. And there are many other notable teachers who are part of this department, and they cover many important research areas. Wildlife sciences started as a department in 1986 with Professor Abbas Musafi as the chairman of the department. Dr. Salim Ali, the famous ornithologist, played a pivotal role in the establishment of this department. And this became the first and only postgraduate department in the Indian university system that covered wildlife conservation and management. And again, many notable people such as Asad Rahmani, who became the head of the Bombay Natural History Society, Jamal Khan, Oruz, and others. And they also cover many research areas in wildlife sciences. Computer sciences, as Hashma Appa said earlier, was started in 1971 when the first computer arrived. It was an IBM 1130 computing system, which IBM made in 1969 and AMU got 1965, and AMU got this in 1971. It was a 16-bit machine with a 1 MB drive. In 1980, AMU acquired another computer which had a 2 to 64 MB. I cannot say exactly how much storage was there, but the point is that this computer, which occupied the whole building, had less computing power than your cell phone has today. In 83, 84, MCA and postgraduate DCA courses were started, and 1988 was the Department of Computer Science was established. The Computer Center was headed by Dr. Aslam Qadir for many years. Builders of science at AMU, again, I would say that this list is not exhaustive. It is simply based on my own lived experience, people who I have seen. There were people before that who I have not seen. There are people after that who I have not experienced at AMU. So it's my personal list. My father is one of those people who established the Department of Biochemistry and the Faculty of Life Sciences. He came back to Aligarh in 1962 after finishing his PhD in University of California. And he worked on this enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase and was the first to show that HMG inhibits this enzyme and therefore inhibits the conversion of HMG-CoA into mevalonate, which is an intermediate in the biosynthesis of cholesterol. And this was really the basis for statins that many of us consume today. His work led him to get a US patent in 1971 while researching at AMU. And this was a US patent. The second person I will say is Professor Ahmad Salahuddin, who established the Interdisciplinary Biotechnology Unit. Salahuddin Sahab came back to AMU in 1968 after finishing his PhD at Duke University. And he was a biophysical chemist who worked on the folding and unfolding of proteins and published some really seminal papers from Aligarh. In the 1970s, he was publishing in the top biochemistry journals such as Biochemistry, JBC, BBA, Biochemical Journal, and so on. And the third I would list is Professor Abbas Musafi, who established the Department of Wildlife Sciences, an avid conservationist and really an architect of the conservation movement in Aligarh in the 1970s. He established the Nature Conservation Society with his students such as Asad Rahmani. In 1984, he went on a Fulbright fellowship to Colorado State University. And I remember that very well because I was a postdoc in Denver at that time. And I used to drive to Fort Collins where Musafi Sahab was located sometimes on weekends to meet with him and to also bring him over to Denver. So I do share that very valuable time with him there. In 1986, the MSc program in wildlife sciences was established and it became a full academic department in AMU. And this trained a large number of students, including Jamal Khan, who is the current chairman of the department. Let me turn to women in science at AMU. And this, I can tell you, was the hardest thing to find, but it helps to have good friends. Women's College in 1922 was giving intermediate degree, and in 1937 became an undergraduate college. Till 1938, Lady Hardinge Medical College in Delhi ran feeder classes for FSc students, and these students could compete for a medicine seat at Lady Hardinge. And one of the first ones to do that was Rashid Jahan, who was Papa Mia's daughter. Science teaching started in the Women's College in 1939, and this really enabled people like Talat Mah in 1972 and Hashma Hassan in 1973 to be able to compete for the highly competitive Commonwealth fellowships to go and do their PhDs in chemistry and physics at Cambridge and Oxford. I will list here some women teachers, the names that I could get from my contacts. This is of course not exhaustive. The chemistry teachers that I have underlined, Arunima Lal, Shaista Bano, and Bilqis Nasim Waris, also became principals of the Women's College and also head of the department. And Arunima Lal also became head of the department and dean of sciences at AMU. Qudsiya Tahseen in zoology, I have highlighted here because she is currently the only existing faculty member at AMU who is a fellow of all the three science academies in India. I will highlight two alumna of AMU whose leaving AMU was a loss for AMU, but again elsewhere. And the one who stands out is Obaid Siddiqi, who did his MSc in Botany in 1953, was appointed lecturer, and went on study leave to do a PhD in genetics at Glasgow. He went on to do a postdoc at University of Pennsylvania, and he was part of really the early work in molecular biology globally. And when he came back to India, he initiated molecular biology in India. He established the Department of Biological Sciences at TIFR in Bombay. He started neurobiology, which he laid the foundations of neurobiology in India. And later in the 1990s, he established the National Center for Biological Sciences. For his service to science, he was given the FRS in 1984, Fellow of Royal Society in 1984, Padma Bhushan in 1984, and Padma Vibhushan in 2006. Why was this a loss for AMU? When his study leave was over, he wanted to extend it and do more research before coming back to AMU, but his leave was denied by AMU and he was asked to resign. At that time, Bhabha was looking for somebody to start biology in his Mathematics and Physics Institute in Bombay. Obaid was recommended by Leo Slizard, who was a close friend of Bhabha. And this is possibly the only case where somebody was hired without first sending in their CV. And here I show you an excerpt from a book. And this is what Bhabha wrote to Obaid. I am very interested personally in supporting work in India in molecular biology and genetics, and we shall make an appropriate offer to you either in the TIFR or in the Atomic Energy Establishment, which is now BARC, after we have seen your CV. So based on simply a recommendation by Leo Slizard, he was hired. And as you can see from these pictures, he really broke ice with some of the leading people in molecular biology, like Francis Crick, Jim Watson, John Tooze, and others. The second is Syed Zahur Qasim, who did his BSc in 1949 and MSc in Zoology in 51 from AMU. He became a lecturer there, went on study leave to do a PhD and DSc from University College in North Wales. He came back and taught at AMU. In 1971, he became director of the Marine Fisheries Research Institute, then became director of the National Institute of Oceanography in Goa. He guided India's Antarctica missions, vice chancellor of Jamia Millia, member planning commission, again, as an excellent marine biologist, again, somebody who was lost to Aligarh, but was again elsewhere. Let me, towards the end, cover some alumni who have been awarded the highest science prize in the country, and that's the Shanti Sarup Bhatnagar Award. The first Bhatnagar awardee among colleagues was Obaid Siddiqi in 1975 for biological sciences. Then in 1978, Hassan Nasim Siddiqi, who was a geologist in earth sciences. And again in 83, another geologist, Syed Mahmood Naqvi, in earth sciences. From 1983, after 17 years, I was lucky to be awarded this prize in 2000 in medical sciences. And then there was a drought of another 15 years, after which Rajiv Varshni, an excellent plant biologist who works in Hyderabad, got the prize in biological sciences. And this year, Bushra Atiq, who did her PhD in zoology at AMU and is now at IIT Kanpur, won the prize. I'm not going to elaborate on this, but I'll just put a question. Science at AMU did so well in the first half of the 20th century, and even up to the 1970s. What happened after that? This is a question for all of us to ponder. This is a question that we have to think about and reflect. Let me end by thanking the Aligarh Alumni Association of Washington, DC for the invitation, Dr. Hashma Hassan and Dr. Aftab Ansari for their inputs, Mr. Naved Masood, IAS, for his inputs, Farah Nizami for information on Women's College, as also Imrana Naseem, who gave me a list of all the teachers that she could think of, Azra Musfi and Jamal for information on, and also Rus for information on Abbas Musfi Sahab, Faizan Ahmad for information on Salahuddin Sahab, Rahat Abrar Sahab for some information, and my cousin Ibrahim for shooting some of the pictures of buildings that you have seen. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Shahid Bhai. Amazing. Thank you very much, Shahid Bhai, for a wonderful talk, and you have beautifully covered the almost 100-year journey of science at AMU. And of course, we all have been enriched by your information. And inshallah, this video will be available on the Facebook, and we'll put on the YouTube also to propagate among the fraternity and other like-minded people so that they can benefit from it. And now I will request President of this session, Sayyid Amir Saab, to please give his presidential remark. Before that, I will just remind everybody that we have another session of this program. In the second session, we will talk about Aligarh ki kahani, tasveeron ki zubani. And even though Shahid Bhai covered a lot of that, so I will take less time. And then there's another program by Dr. Hina Nazli from Chicago. Ye Khat Mein Paigam Kiska Hai? So I will request everyone to please stay online. So now I will request Sayyid Amir Saab to please give his presidential remark for this session. Sayyid Amir Saab.
Thank you very much. First of all, I have to say I was so impressed with Shahid Jamil's talk, very comprehensive, based on a lot of research. And I would like to recommend to him to please put it together either in the form of a printed paper or a book, because this kind of research has lasting need and benefit, and otherwise it will be lost. I was thinking about what's the place of presidential remarks in a centenary, a legal centenary. And I have the benefit of I go a long way back to Aligarh, probably one of the only benefits. The other thing I learned during my long association of 8 years with Aligarh is that when your colleagues or friends ask you to do something, you only ask, how soon? So I'm here. One impressive thing I learned from the just talk is how much Aligarh and his students and his faculty has achieved in research. I used to be a student in chemistry department, what will be called the Middle Ages now, in the late 50s. And it was a very different situation. Dr. Umar Farooq was our chairperson, and we were all scared of him. When later on, I went to Pakistan and joined PCSR there, a student in England and a teacher in Harvard, I realized how much the behavior of the students and teachers is different than what I was used to in the late 50s at Aligarh. We were all scared of it, and especially Dr. Umar Farooq. And he was a guy who was head of department, and in the final year of the MSc, it was used to be a research project. And if he liked you, he took you, and he took 2 students, and my fortune or misfortune that he selected one of me, and those 2 of us, one working in his lab, and we never signed, probably once or twice the whole year. And as far as the guidance was concerned, it was very difficult to get anything out of him. He used to take some seminars and never use a board or slides. Of course, technology has not advanced. So when he wanted to express any organic chemistry formulas, he used to write them in the air like that, and you couldn't understand what it was. But there was a range of talent in the chemistry department, and we had Professor Kidwai, who had come a few years ago from as biochemistry. He was a reader there at the moment from the USA, and Dr. Malik. They was outstanding teachers, and especially Dr. Kidwai has started for the first time a research program at Aligarh, at the chemistry department, as he had recruited 1 or 2 students who was working with him. And Dr. Naseem, unfortunately, died some years ago, who was his first student in biochemistry. And Dr. Obaid Siddiqi also, I remember, he was doing some research. I am not sure what was the topic of us. There was not very much interaction between the faculty or researchers and the students like me. We used to see him occasionally coming in to see his fiancée, who was also working in the lab. But there was other teachers at the time, chemistry department, who had prepared some kind of notes some time ago, 10, 15 years, never revised them. And they came and they read it, and we were supposed to make the notes out of that. It was hard to make any notes because unless you are shorthand expertise. And these people, I don't think very much interested in there, and I don't think we benefited from them very much. One very bright young faculty member, Dr. Wasiur Rahman, who taught me, and later on he became the vice chancellor of the university. He was really earnest in research, and he was working late in the evenings, and occasionally I applied to him for some help in my project because Dr. Umar Farooq and we were always, as I said, scared of him. I never approached him. And he was very kind, and you could see that he was so personally involved and interested in research. And the status of research at those facilities and at department was, you would not imagine, not realize the difference when I got to Birmingham University and faculty at Harvard, that we were using those, I was still boring carts to fit the equipment, and the store, there was a chemical store, but most of the time we couldn't find anything there, because the university was going through a financial problem and they couldn't really afford to have equipment there. And similarly, we had a seminar room, but there were no journals, or very few of us, and we could not afford the books either. So it was, but nevertheless, how impressive it is that Shahid Jamil has provided all the impressive record how the Aligarh students, faculty, how marvelously they did later on in their life, and I'm very gratified. So thank you very much. And I still see people are, even today, in addition to him, there are people, Aligarh people, who are doing so well. And we have recently heard that another bright student of Aligarh, Professor Imran Ali, was judged as the top scientist in India, and he's also a product of Aligarh University. So we are all very gratified that the torch keeps burning brightly, very much so. So thank you, and again, I want to thank Shahid Jamil and congratulate him on his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Amir Bhai, for your presidential remark and your own memory. Thank you once again. So this concludes the first session. Now I will request Dr. Muhammad Akbar to please come on the stage and start the second session of this evening or afternoon from US time. So Dr. Muhammad Akbar, please.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाजरीन, आज के इस प्रोग्राम में अलीगढ़ अलमनाई एसोसिएशन वाशिंगटन डीसी के कई जाने माने नाम में से दो जाने माने नाम जो इस एसोसिएशन की पहचान है आपके सामने मौजूद हैं, जिनमें से एक डॉक्टर रफत हुसैन हैं और दूसरे जनाब अफजल उस्मानी हैं। और डॉक्टर रफत हुसैन, जो जिनको नहीं मालूम है, वो एफडीए में सीनियर साइंटिस्ट हैं जो 25 साल से ज़्यादा वहाँ पर काम कर रहे हैं, और हमारे एसोसिएशन के प्रेसिडेंट इस साल के जनाब अफजल उस्मानी साहब, जो सीनियर इंजीनियर हैं, जो आईटी स्पेशलिस्ट हैं, वो अलीगढ़ एसोसिएशन के इस साल के प्रेसिडेंट हैं। तो वैसे तो ये लोगों का कोई तारीफ के मुताज नहीं है। आप वो आज वो आपके सामने अलीगढ़ एसोसिएशन की 100 साला तारीख को तस्वीरों की शक्ल में पेश करेंगे, जिससे आप अपने आप को कुछ वक्त के लिए माजी में पहुंच जाएंगे। तो आज हम इनका इस्तकबाल करते हैं इस ख़ता के साथ, अलीगढ़ की वो कहानी, तस्वीरों की ये ज़ुबानी, मौक़े सदी पर अच्छी है ये याद दहानी, माजी के पन्नों को उलटने दौर हाजिर में आ रहे हैं दोनों डॉक्टर रफत और ये उस्मानी। डॉक्टर रफत हुसैन और उस्मानी साहब, शुरू हो जाएं आप लोग।
क्या बात है अप्पू, क्या शायर हो गया।
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया अकबर भाई। So let me begin the slideshow here. So I think give me a few minutes. Okay, 5. Can you see the screen properly?
Yes.
Once
Yes.
again, thank you everybody, and welcome to this Centennial celebration of Aligarh Alumni Association, Washington DC. It's a Centennial celebration of Aligarh Muslim University, organized by Aligarh Alumni Association, Washington DC, and our sister organization from across the globe. And we are doing a series of events started from 31st October till early December, and different sister organizations across the globe are participating and joining in our efforts. I would like to express my gratitude and thanks to everybody. So let's begin this session. A lot of things Shahid Bhai covered in this aspect, so probably it will be much quicker for us to finish this. And I'm really thankful for Rafat Bhai for helping me to put up the slides and add more information into that one. So ये अलीगढ़ की कहानी तस्वीरों की ज़ुबानी. वैसे तो खैर 100 साल की कहानी है और इरादा तो मेरा ये था कि भाई probably we'll put at least 400 slides, so get ready for that to have a 400 slide presentation. मैं मजाक कर रहा हूँ वैसे 100 साल के लिए 400 भी कम है, लेकिन बहरहाल कुछ कम स्लाइड्स में काम चलाया जाएगा. तो आइए कहानी शुरू करते हैं वहां से. ओके सॉरी, ओके होल्ड ऑन, कुछ स्लो है या क्या है ये?
Go back.
होल्ड ऑन. Yeah, you can see basically this is the picture of the foundation of AMU College in 1877. Even though we are talking about the history of Aligarh Muslim University, which was basically granted a status of university in 1920, but of course we cannot talk about Aligarh Muslim University without talking about AMU College, which was established in 1875 as a Madrasatul Ulum, and in 2 years, in 1877, it became Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, which is also known as AMU College in 1877. So this is the picture of the foundation of AMU College. You can see basically this pulley chain also. And in the next picture, you can see even Sir Sayyid is visible in this picture. This is a pulley chain. And recently this was a lot in news because of the time capsule. So hopefully most of you have seen this one. یہ سر سید احمد خان کی وہ تقریر ہے جو انہوں نے 18 جنوری 1877 کو اس سنگ بنیاد کے موقع پر کہی تھی کہ آج ہم جو بیج بو رہے ہیں وہ ایک دن تناور درخت ہو جائے گا. ہمارے ملک کے بڑھ کے درخت کی طرح اس کی شاخیں زمین میں جڑ پکڑ لیں گی اور پھر ان سے نئی اور مضبوط شاخیں پیدا ہوں گی. یہ کالج ایک یونیورسٹی کی شکل میں پروان چڑھے گا جس کے طالب علم ملک کے طول و عرض میں پھیل جائیں گے اور آزادانہ تحقیق، وسیع القلبی، رواداری اور سچے اخلاق کی تعلیمات پھیلائیں گے. اور سر سید کا یہ خواب شرمندہ تعبیر بھی ہوا، اس کی بات بھی کریں گے. لیکن آئیے اس سے پہلے تھوڑی سی سر سید کی بات کر لیتے ہیں. جیسا کہ آپ سبھی لوگ جانتے ہیں کہ یہ سر سید ہاؤس کی وہ پرانی سی تصویر ہے جہاں پر سر سید احمد خان 1876 سے 1898 تک رہے. اور یہ فی الحال this is the current picture of Sir Syed House, which was of course taken over by government of India after the independence, because the descendants of the Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, they moved to Pakistan, so it became enemy evacuee property. But later on in 1974, Professor Khaliq Ahmad Nizami Sahab Sefford, and at that time the governor of Uttar Pradesh, Akbar Ali Khan Sahab's help, the university was able to repurchase the same house, and then they established Sir Syed Academy into that one in 1975. جیسا کہ we all know اکبر کے نورتن بہت مشہور تھے، اسی طرح سے ہمارے تاریخ کے ایک بہت معتبر نام مولانا ابوالکلام آزاد صاحب نے اپنے اخبار لسان الصدق میں 1905 میں کہا کہ سر سید احمد خان کے بھی نورتن تھے، اور انہوں نے ان کا تذکرہ کیا. اس میں شبلی نعمانی، محسن الملک، وقار الملک، ڈپٹی نذیر احمد، مولوی سمیع اللہ، الطاف حسین حالی، مولوی ذکاء اللہ، حاجی اسماعیل خان آف دتاولی اور مولوی چراغ علی تھے. ان لوگوں نے ایک سر سید کے ساتھ ایک پوری ٹیم بنائی اور سر سید کے مشن کو بھی آگے بڑھایا. یہ if you go to university now close to Faiz Gate and Bikampur Gate, you will see this last message is engraved there on a stone, and it shows the entire reflects basically Sir Syed's overall efforts and vision, where he clearly mentioned that I lost my eyesight but not my vision, and basically he describes all his efforts and how kind of difficulties he faced at personal level as well as professional level. عام طور سے جیسے ہم لوگ یہ سمجھتے ہیں کہ بھائی جن لوگوں نے بھی بڑا کام کیا ہے، بڑے پرفیکٹ انوائرمنٹ میں کام کیا، ان کو کوئی مشکلات نہیں آئی ہوں گی پرسنل اور پروفیشنل لیول پر. ایسا نہیں ہوتا ہے. عام طور سے آپ ان لوگوں کی زندگیوں کو پڑھیں تو پتہ لگتا ہے کہ کتنی ساری مشکلات کا انہوں نے سامنا کیا. اس میں ڈیفینیٹلی سر سید کی لائف میں بھی پرسنل لیول پر بہت ارلی ایج میں ان کی وائف کا انتقال ہو گیا، بیٹی کا انتقال ہو گیا، 2 چھوٹے بچے، ان کی پرورش بھی انہوں نے کی، جس میں سید محمود اور سید حامد 2 ان کے بیٹے تھے. تو اس طرح ایسا نہیں ہے، بلکہ پروفیشنل لیول پر مختلف لوگوں نے ان کے خلاف فتاوے دیے، ان کو اپوز کیا، ان کے ویژن کو اپوز کیا، ان کے تھاٹس کو اپوز کیا. تو وہ سب مشکلات بھی ہوتی. تو اس لیے یہ سوچنا کہ ان لوگوں نے پرفیکٹ حالات میں کام کیا، یہ مناسب نہیں ہوتا ہے. بہرحال آپ لوگ اگر یونیورسٹی جائیں گے اور جاتے ہوں گے تو وہاں پر ایک یونیورسٹی سرکل پر جو ہے یہ میسج انگریو ہے، تو آپ ضرور دیکھیں اسے اور اس سے استفادہ کریں. یہ अलीगढ़ मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी के बनने से पहले एमओ कॉलेज की मैनेजमेंट कमेटी के सेक्रेटरी और जिम्मेदारान थे। जाहिर सी बात है कि सर सैयद जब कॉलेज बना और उसकी मैनेजमेंट कमेटी के शुरू से लाइफ सेक्रेटरी थे, तो 1875 और 77 से 1898 तक सर सैयद उसके सेक्रेटरी रहे। अपनी जिंदगी में 1880s के अराउंड कुछ लोगों के मशवरे के बाद सैयद महमूद जो उनके बेटे थे, छोटे बेटे, और इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट में जज थे वो, and for the sake of record, he till now he holds the record to be the youngest justice of Allahabad High Court. He became judge at the age of 32. Anyway, so वो उसके लाइफ जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी इलेक्ट हो गए थे ताकि सर सैयद के इंतकाल या उनके बाद जो है सैयद महमूद सेक्रेटरी हो जाएं, और बिल्कुल ऐसा हुआ भी। और 1898 में सर सैयद के इंतकाल के बाद Sayyid Mahmood became the secretary of the management committee of MO College. But at that time, his health was not good and there were some personal problems with Sayyid Mahmood. So of course, a lot of people were worried about that, how the college will go on. So in early 1899, they had a meeting and then they basically requested Sayyid Mahmood to resign because of his health reason. And there was a long story into that one. I will not go into detail. Finally, he resigned and they elected Nawab Mohsin al-Mulk as the next secretary of the MO College Management Committee. And of course, we don't have time to talk about each secretary's efforts and to improve and to enhance the college. But our plan is to, inshallah, after this program, we'll put a web series on our website and Facebook page to talk about each and every secretary and each and every major contributors to the college and later on to the university. So this is just a brief overview of the entire history. So Nawab Mohsin al-Mulk became the secretary after Sayyid Mahmood, and he served as a secretary of the management committee from 1899 to 1907. Then he died in 1907. And after that, the management committee elected Nawab Bukhar al-Mulk as the next secretary of the committee, and he served as secretary from 1907 to 1912. Then he resigned and he moved to Amroha. He didn't die yet, so he moved to Amroha back, which was his native place. And after that, they elected Nawab Ishaq Khan as a secretary of the management committee. जो लोग अलीगढ़ जाते हैं एसएस नॉर्थ में जैसे ही इंटर होते हैं, वहाँ पर एक गेट है जिसका नाम बाबे इसहाक है। ये नवाब इसहाक खान के नाम पर वो गेट है, बाबे इसहाक, और ये 1913 से लेकर 1918 तक कॉलेज के सेक्रेटरी रहे। बाद में ये जहांगीराबाद के नवाब थे और बाद में इन्हीं की प्रॉपर्टीज को अमेरिका की एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन IMRC ने खरीद कर वहाँ पर जहांगीराबाद इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी कायम किया है। आखिरी ज़माने में अराउंड 1918 से नवाब इसहाक खान became a little bit sick. So they elected acting secretary Sayyid Muhammad Ali, who belonged to the family of Sir Sayyid. So then he took over, and officially when Nawab Ishaq Khan died in October 1918, they elected Sayyid Muhammad Ali as a secretary of the college management committee. And this is the time when the efforts to transform MAO college into university was at peak. So of course, Muhammad Ali took a leadership of that movement and played a very vital role to convert the MAO college into Muslim university. This is a list of the principals of MAO College. As we all know, Henry, in 1875, when Madrasatul Ulum was established, Henry George E.P. Stidham was appointed as headmaster of the school. And later on, in 1875, it became college. They appointed him as a principal of the college. So he served the college from 1875 to 1884, which is almost like 12 years. And after that, the very young Theodore Beck, who came as a principal in 1884 and served as a principal till 1899. So 15 years as a principal, and his entire career was as a principal. He came at a very young age, around 24, 25 years, and he died in India, Shimla itself, in the year 1899. So he is the longest serving principal of MAO College. After that, after his death, of course, they elected Theodore Morrison as the principal of the college, and he served the principal from 1899 to 1905. And we all know that we have a hostel named after the Theodore Morrison Hostel. And he was also a mentor and guardian of Sayyid Ras Masood, who was a grandson of Sir Sayyid. When Sayyid Mahmood's health was very bad, he took the guardianship of Sir Ras Masood. After his retirement, and he moved back to England, W.A.J. Archbold became the principal of MAO College in 1905, and he served till 1909. And after him, of course, J. Stoll from 1909 to 1919. After that, they were trying to bring some of the trustees of the college and management committee. They wanted to bring Sir Ras Masood as a principal of the college, but for some personal reasons, Sir Ras Masood and some conflict between the trustees, he did not accepted the offer. So they appointed Sir Ziauddin Ahmed as the new principal of the college, who was also AMU college alumnus. And as Shahid Bhai mentioned, that he was a faculty in the mathematics. And so he basically appointed as a principal, and he served as a principal till end of the college. That means when the college became Muslim university. And after that, he became the founding vice chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University. So here's a few glimpses of the AMU college remnants and groupings. You see on the leftmost side is Professor Thomas Walker Arnold, which was one of the professor of philosophy, who was there. And you can see Professor Theodore Beck. So this is a picture of their Aligarh picture. So Theodore Arnold and Theodore Beck. And you see this grouping, second grouping, you see Theodore Beck in the middle, Professor Tipping, and on the left side, you can see Maulana Muhammad Ali Jauhar, and this one, Sajjad Haider Yildirim, and this is Sheikh Abdullah, Papa Mian. There are a few others, of course. And this grouping, you see very famous Sahibzada Aftab Ahmad Khan, who was also AMU College alumnus. Later on, he became Vice Chancellor. And in the center, you see Raja Mahmudabad, Nawab Muhammad Ali Sahab, who became the founding Vice Chancellor, and then Waqarul Mulk. And on the back, you can see Sir Ziauddin. This is a very historical picture of 1904. James Meston visited, and you see a lot of luminaries of Aligarh movement and the Muslim intellectuals of that time. You see Hakim Ajmal Khan, now Muzammilullah Khan, you see Maulana Muhammad Ali Jauhar on the back, Nawab Muhammad Ali, and so many other figures. Of course, Nawab Isa Khan is sitting next to James Meston. This again, few groupings. This is the 1897-98 football team of AMU College. This is the Students' Union of 1918, where you can see Zakir Hussain Sahab. This is another AMU College students in England. You see from left-hand side, Hashim Bilgrami, Zainul Abdin Bilgrami, and so many other peoples. And this is the grouping from England, AMU College students in England. This is one of the Student Union Mushaira, AMU College Mushaira. And you see a very prominent, our own AMU College alumnus, Hassan Mohani, is also in this picture. Again, this is one of the very historical building of Kachi Barak, which was part of the east of Sayyid Mahmud Court. So let me refresh the audience. At that time, there was two court. One was Sir Sayyid Court, which is now the SS Hall South, and another was Sayyid Mahmud Court, which is now the SS Hall North. Unfortunately, there's a hostel. Fortunately, there's a hostel name in Sir Sayyid Hall North, Sayyid Mahmud Hostel, but somehow they always use the abbreviation SM East, SM West. So a lot of people doesn't know that that is named after Sayyid Mahmud. And I personally wrote letters to the vice chancellors in the past, and it came into discussion also in the AMU Executive Council meeting to rename the SS Hall North as Sayyid Mahmud Hall. Anyway, let's see when it happens. So this is the new Kachi Barak. Basically, now it's no more Kachi Barak, but this is the actual Kachi Barak, which was later on converted into the concrete building.
This is my hostel.
Oh, that's good. So this is the Mumtaz House, which was built in 1903. And now let's begin the journey of AMU College to Aligarh Muslim University. I will not talk much in detail. I have just referred a few books, which is the Muslim Educational Conference papers, Urdu in English, and there's a book on All India Muslim Educational Conference, 100 years, that talks about the entire struggle of Muslim University. And in brief, if you want to read, there's a paper by Professor Gail Minault and Professor David Lelyveld, the campaign for a Muslim University 1898 to 1920. It's available on internet. So I will recommend the listener, please read this one. This describes the struggle for Aligarh Muslim University from AMU College. And very recently, Gail Minault, who is a professor in University of Texas, Austin, was honored with the Associate Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020. David Lelyveld Sahab is an living expert on Sir Syed. His book, Aligarh, the First Generation, is a very remarkable book to read about the history of Aligarh Muslim University at the first generation. So here is the birth of Aligarh Muslim University, which is officially the 1st December. If you look at the brief history, on 24th May 1875, Madrasatul Ulum was founded. 1877, it became college. 27th August 1920, Muslim University Bill was presented. 9th September 1920, Aligarh Muslim University Bill was passed. Then 14th September 1920, assent of Governor General was given to that bill. On 1st December, Gazette notification was issued and AMU was established. And 17th December 1920, AMU was inaugurated. So here is the copy of the basically the plaque of the bill. The bill of the Muslim University was introduced in the Indian Legislative Council on August 27, 1920. So this goes whole, and officially 1st December is the day of the date of birth of Aligarh Muslim University. This is a new team of Aligarh Muslim University, you see, and we have the privilege and honor to have a lady, which is not very common in India, at least for now. Many of the universities, we have not seen much of women. Yeah, we have, but like this is 1920. So Begum Sultan Jahan was appointed as the first and founding chancellor of a newly established Aligarh Muslim University. She was the ruler of Bhopal at that time, and of course she played a very vital role in promoting educational cause and at the same time women's education cause also. Sir Sultan Shah Aga Khan, the Imam of Ismailia Muslims, became the pro-chancellor, and to this learned audience I would like to tell that please, I will request everyone to mute, please. Alia Appa, please, thank you. So Sir Sultan Shah Aga Khan was one of the leading figure to convert the AMU College into Muslim University, and he was the chairman of the fundraising committee to establish an endowment fund to run the Muslim University. So he became the pro-chancellor of Aligarh, founding pro-chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University. And Raja of Mahmudabad, His Highness Muhammad Ali Khan, who's also popularly known as Raja of Mahmudabad, became the founding vice-chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University. And by the way, for this audience, we'll talk about a little bit more about him. And Sir Zauddin, who was the last principal of AMU College, became the founding pro-vice-chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University. This is the time 1920, so I just wanted to bring this thing also, that this was a very tough time, and there was a very famous movement, non-cooperation and Khilafat movement was going on in India. And there was on 10th October, Mahatma Gandhi visited AMU College at that time, along with Ali brothers, Maulana Shaukat Ali and Maulana Muhammad Ali Jauhar, with Swami Satyadev. And that's where the very famous Students Union Club gave him reception, and he addressed the audience. And on 23rd, between 23rd and 29th October of 1920, national leaders like Maulana Azad, Hakim Ajmal Khan, Maulana Mahmudul Hasan, Sheikhul Hind, Maulana Abdul Majid Daryabadi, Dr. Mukhtar Ansari visited Aligarh and addressed gatherings of students, teachers who supported non-cooperation movement. And one of their demand was that the AMU College Management Committee should not accept the offer of British government to basically make AMU College as a university, which was denied by the AMU College Management Committee and the trustees. So to counter that, this gathering, basically they established a new university called National Muslim University in AMU camp, around next to the AMU campus itself, which was later became Jamia Millia Islamia. And till 1925, this university was operated next to, adjacent to Aligarh Muslim University campus. And later on in 1925, they moved to Karol Bagh, Delhi, and later on now New Jamia Nagar later on. So that was a very tough time also. So definitely. So this is the list of the vice chancellors. Of course, the plan was to talk about every vice chancellor and their achievements and their things, but of course we do not have time. So we'll just focus on a few of them. And as I said, in our web series, we'll talk about every vice chancellor and their achievements and what they did for the Muslim University. So I will just start with the founding vice chancellor, Raja of Mahmudabad. He was a Raja of Mahmudabad, which is next to Lucknow. And I'd like to tell the audience that the Lucknow University, which he is the founder of Lucknow University also. And at that time, he was a Home Minister of UP State also. So, and this is the time when Vice Chancellorship was a kind of honorary job, and the Vice Chancellor does not used to live in Aligarh. So they used to come occasionally just as a superficial role kind of thing. But still they were the leader. Officially, they were the head of the institution. But most of the day-to-day affairs was operated by the pro-Vice Chancellor. So, and as I said, this was a very tough time because of the non-cooperation movement. So enrollment fall among the students from UP and Bihar who preferred institutions like the University of Allahabad, Lucknow College, and St. John College, Agra, and Patna College, etc. But still, Raja Mahmudabad basically added a few notable additions to the staff of the university. Dr. D.N. Malik, professor of Presidency College, Calcutta, joined AMU as a professor of physics. Then very famous professor, Mr. Muhammad Habib, who's the father of Professor Irfan Habib, who did his honors from Oxford, also joined as a professor in the history. Then Mr. N.K. Mukherjee was appointed principal of the training college. Raja Sahib's generous donation of 1 lakh rupees made possible to purchase a 193 bigha of land for the expansion of the university. So he completed the clock tower, which is part of the Victoria Gate. You see the picture here. So he completed basically Osmania Hostel, a school staff quarters, enclosure of the wall around the Minto Circle, completion of the half western wing of the Osmania Hostel, and intermediate college lecture room. So he was able to do some things at least. Sorry. So the next vice chancellor was Sahibzada Aftab Ahmad Khan, and he was, of course, one of the very famous name here. We have the Aftab Hostel named after him, and now one of the entire hall is named after him, Aftab Hall. He was one of the earlier student of the school as well as the AMU college, and he was hailing from the Zamindar family of Kunjpura in Karnal district of Punjab. He chose to settle down in Aligarh as a legal practitioner after completing his education from Cambridge, being called to the bar in order to devote himself to the community cause through participation in the affairs of the college and Muslim Educational Conference. He was also basically very actively involved in the educational conference. So when you read the history of educational conference, you find a lot of Aftab Ahmad Khan's role. And at the same time, he was also the founder of Duty Society, which is now still recently, it was headed by Professor Abul Hassan Siddiqi Saab. Now I don't know who is heading that, but he is one of the founder of the Duty Society. Among the major things what he did was the celebration of the golden jubilee of the institution, because Madrasatul Ulum was established in 1875 and he was a vice chancellor in 1925. So 50 years was completed. So they celebrated a golden jubilee and conceived. And one of the very important thing which I would like to emphasize here, that he was the one who conceived the idea of the Science College project, which was completed later on in 1930s by Sir Ras Masood. So see some of the notable buildings completed during his time. One is the Beck Manzil, named after Theodore Beck. The Arnold House, which is now currently the Proctor office of Aligarh Muslim University. This was the Arnold House. Professor Arnold used to live there. Then Nizam Museum, which is named after Nizam of Hyderabad. Then one of the very, very important institution of Aligarh Muslim University, which is very rare, which was very rare at that time, Ahmadi School for Visually Challenged. So this was the work of Sahibzada Aftab Ahmad Khan to establish the Ahmadi School for Visually Challenged people. This grouping was already shown by Shahid Bhai. So you see basically Sahibzada Aftab Ahmad Khan, and this is the Department of Physics in 1925. Coming back after him, Muzammilullah Khan Sahib became vice chancellor, but as I said, we'll talk about him later on. And then let's talk about a little bit on Sir Ras Masood. He's one of my favorite vice chancellor. And to this learned audience, I'd like to emphasize that he became vice chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University at the age of 39. So which is normally in these days, we don't consider anybody of that age to be mature enough to give him the high responsibility. But he was elected by the court after a very big turmoil in AMU campus. Begum Sultan Jahan actively got involved as a chancellor, and she was the one who made possible that Sir Ras Masood should become the vice chancellor, and he accepted the offer and he became the vice chancellor. As we all know, he's the grandson of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and only son of Sir Syed's younger son, Syed Mahmud. So before becoming the vice chancellor, he was the head of the education department of entire state of Hyderabad. So from there he came as a vice chancellor. These are the few pictures of Sir Ras Masood. You can see Sir Ras Masood sitting in the lap of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and next to his father, Syed Mahmud. This is a grouping of Sir Ras Masood with his friends in England. You can see H.K. Sherwani, E.M. Foster, which is basically who has dedicated his book Passage to India to Sir Ras Masood. This is a very famous picture of Sir Ras Masood with Allama Iqbal and Sayyid Sulaiman Nadvi from the trip of Afghanistan. I would just like to emphasize that when Shah of Afghanistan invited Allama Iqbal for some educational work, to develop some kind of a curriculum or some educational projects in Afghanistan. And then when he requested Iqbal basically also requested two of his Indian friends, Sayyid Sulaiman Nadvi and Ras Masood, to join the team for that particular project. So just you can see basically how important Sir Ras Masood was in the field of education, that even Iqbal, he was a good friend of Sir Ras Masood, and they went to Afghanistan for more than 3 weeks, almost a month-long trip. And of course, they had a high-level discussion with the officials of Afghanistan, try to establish some educational projects and institutions. These are a few pictures of Iqbal and Ras Masood in Aligarh. This is the personal picture of Sir Ras Masood with his wife. And by the way, he was married to the daughter of Sahibzada Aftab Ahmed Khan. Later on, they got divorced and he got married to another lady. These are the few highlights of Sir Ras Masood. He recruited some of the finest, as Shahid Bhai already mentioned, that he recruited some of the finest available talent to academic position to give a flip to the postgraduate teaching and research, particularly in the field of science. Chief among them were R. Samuel, the noted physicist who had fled the pogrom of Jew in Germany and was recommended for the position by Einstein and C.V. Raman, the Nobel laureate. The doyen of molecular spectroscopy, Krishna Asundi, Hunter R.D. Desai, and Salimuzzaman Siddiqi in chemistry, Ibadur Rahman in geography, and Reveal and D.D. Kosambi in the mathematics. There are a few other things also. He obtained grants from the government of Hyderabad and the imperial government and establishment of a science college, and completed the construction and installation of equipments in record time. The first MA program in geography on the Asian continent was introduced in 1929 during his vice chancellorship. Researches carried out by Asundi physics, Siddiqi and Desai in chemistry, and Sharif Khan, Qadri, and M.A. Bashir in zoology at Aligarh were widely regarded as valuable addition to the knowledge then existing. For the first time, Aligarh students started qualifying in the ICS and IP examinations, attesting to the high quality of its undergraduate education. Key standardized protocols were laid down for conduct of the residential life in halls of residence, leading to the considerable improvements in the discipline. This is again a very historical picture Shahid Bhai shared, so I will just skip that one. Few of the things he noted was that teachers were encouraged to obtain PhD degrees of foreign university. And I hope the present, and I hope and pray the present administrations and the management of university should still do the same. Political leaders of various persuasions were regularly invited to speak on subjects of topic interest to broaden the horizon of the university community. The Vice Chancellor used his personal contacts, managed to put the university on a sound financial footing. He managed to obtain equivalence of Aligarh degree with the degrees of other universities. The unprecedented provision of the AMU Act declaring Aligarh degrees to be at par with other universities had hitherto been a dead letter. That means it was a very great achievement. Female education received a flip with the university undertaking the responsibility of conducting high school examination of the girls' school and by permitting girls to take university examination. So this was done by Sir Ras Masood Saab. And you can see these are the chemistry department, science building. And there's a very recently a book came out on his life by Syed Hakim Zilur Rahman Saab. I will recommend the audience to please go read that book that has a detailed life description of Sir Ras Masood. He was president of Anjuman Taraqi Urdu also, and so many other things he did. These are, so as I said, like these are the few distinguished visitors. I will not, as I said, I will not talk about all the vice chancellors because it will take a amount of time. So we'll do that web series, inshallah, very soon. So these are the few distinguished visitors of Aligarh Muslim University. Chakravarti Rajgopal Acharya, who was the Governor General of India, who visited Aligarh during the Zakir Hussain. You can see this, the full bearded person is none other than Dr. Zakir Hussain, who was Vice Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University at that time. Then, of course, the President, Dr. Radha Krishnan, and the President, Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma, the President, Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed, President Gyani Zail Singh, and of course, later on, and at the same time, Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri, Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and of course, Panditji, we all know that Panditji came to Aligarh Muslim University many, many times, and this is one of the picture where he led the foundation stone of Safi Hostel, which is part of the Mohsinul Mulk MM Hall these days. So he came in 1955. So he was the one who also came for the foundation stone of Maulana Azad Library also. These are few international distinguished visitors. Of course, Jabir al-Sabah, Amir Kuwait, then Shah of Iran, Muhammad Raza Pahlavi in 1955, then Sheikh Zayed of UAE in 1975. You can see Professor Ali Muhammad Khusu Saab, Vice Chancellor also, Nawab Chatai Saab, and you can see at that time, VC Shukla, who was a Minister of State Foreign Affairs as a protocol minister. He also joined Sheikh Zayed. You can see Tinku Abdurrahman, the Vice President of Indonesia. He came to Aligarh. Then Shah of Afghanistan, King Zahir Shah in 1958. And here very famous Basha Khan, which is Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, now also known as Frontier Gandhi. came to Aligarh. You can see Professor Khaliq Ahmad Nizami and Nawab Chatari in this group. There are many other people too. Okay, so few more. So of course, Qadi Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. You can see Jamal Nasir of Egypt. He came twice one of them is 1955, and this one is 1962. You can also see Sayyidina Saifuddin Tahir, who was the Chancellor of Aligarh Muslims at that time, sitting next to him. Here is Saud ibn Abdul Aziz, the King of Saudi Arabia, came to Aligarh in 1956. You can see Dr. Zakir Hussain also in this picture. And this picture has, like, you can see the entire cabinet of Mir Usman Ali Khan Nizam of Hyderabad, who also served as a Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University for a decade. And this picture, you can see Mrs. Indira Gandhi and Nawab Chatari, and of course, this is Professor Abdul Alim Saab, who was Vice Chancellor of that time, grandfather of Shahid Jamil Saab. Here is the picture of Princess Amrit Kaur, who was a very renowned figure at that time. She visited Aligarh. And here you can see the picture of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, who came in Aligarh in 1948-49, a very famous speech by Shah Hassan Atta. Basically, I will not say embarrassed him, but he made a comment that I thought I came here to talk, not to listen. Anyway, so you can see Maulana Abdul Majid Daryabadi, a very renowned Islamic scholar. He was honored as a D.Litt from Aligarh Muslim University, so he also came many times, but this is the picture when he was receiving a D.Litt degree by the Chancellor Nawab Chatari Saab. Pandit Vijay Lakshmi Pandit, who was the President of the General Assembly of United Nations, she also came to Aligarh. And you can see Nawab Ali Yawar Jang Saab as a Vice Chancellor. In this picture, you can see we see Shukla and Satyajit Ray and Vice Chancellor Ali Mohand Khusro Saab, basically as a part of AMU Drama Club program. There are a few other groupings. You can see this is 1958 picture of a first All India Inter-University Table Tennis Tournament, and Colonel Bashir Hussain Zaidi, you can see him in this picture. So he was the Vice Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University at that time. He's also known as Shah Jahan of Aligarh Muslim University because he played a very key role in making different very famous buildings, including Kennedy Auditorium. This is one of the very old picture of 1928-29 AMU Students Union, basically Sir Ras Masood along the office bearers of Students Union. Similarly, you can see in this picture Nawab Ali Yawar Jang, who is the Vice Chancellor with the office bearers of Aligarh Muslim University. And this person, he's Maulana Muzaffar Islahi, who was Secretary of Students Union at that time. This is a grouping of riding club inside the Jama Masjid. This is a very recent picture of during the Vice Chancellorship of Sayyid Hashim Ali Akhtar Saab of AMU Drama Club. You can see the present president of the General Education Center, F.S. Shirani, who was also very active in the drama club. He's also there. He's a faculty in the Unani Medicine. And this is a picture of Professor Rahman, who was Vice Chancellor with Hashim Ali Akhtar Saab. This is another grouping. Basically, you can see on the right side, Colonel Bashir Hussain Zaidi Saab is sitting in the middle. Very young Professor Shahriyar Saab and Professor Alim Asrur Saab, two very renowned personalities from the Department of Urdu. Here in the central picture, you can see Nobel laureate Professor Abdul Salam Saab. He visited Aligarh many, many times. And of course, he played a very key role in the establishment of Center for Promotion of Science, which is basically an independent body. And he gave the seed money also. And he was very actively involved till he was alive, along with Professor Professor Israr Ahmad of Department of Physics, who was the founding director of Center for Promotion of Science. And you can see other people also, Yar Qadai Saab, at that time, Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University, Pro-Chancellor Badr Rahman Khan Sherwani Saab, and the head of the Hamdard Dawakhana, Hakim Saab, who later became the Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University, Professor Usman Admi Saab, and many others. This is another grouping of MU Students Union, Chaudhry Mursil Khan Saab, with Sheikh Zayed of UAE. And you see the bottom picture here, it's Triguna Sen during 50s, during the Vice Chancellorship of Nawab Ali Yawar Jang Saab. This is a very historical picture, very old. You can see on the right side, the long bearded person is Zainul Abidin, who was a very close friend of Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan and helped Aligarh AMU College at that time to the best of his abilities. And if you want to know more about him, on my website or blog, aligarhmovement.com, you have a brief life sketch of Zainul Abidin Saab. You can see young Sahibzada Aftab Ahmad Khan also in this picture. And you can see Professor Thomas Walker Ordnell in this picture, who was in Aligarh till basically 1800, and later on he moved to Lahore as a principal of Lahore College. After that he moved to England, and he was also a teacher of Allama Iqbal. On next to him you can see Nawab Mohsin Mulk Sahab. So for sure this picture is before 1907. This is a glimpse from the life archive, so basically Times Archives life. So you can see the old Aligarh with, of course, this is the clock tower and Victoria Gate. This is the classroom, and I remember correctly, Shahid Bhai mentioned Professor Babar Mirza. So he's Professor Babar Mirza taking classes, and you can see a separate arrangement for Parda at that time. So the girls student can attend the classes in the Parda. So this is one of the picture the girl students are coming. So this picture, this is one of the picture of basically a convocation. You can just behind this one, Uddin Saab, who was Vice Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University at that time, addressing the audience, Nawab Chatari Saab, and then young Burhanuddin, who was the son of Saifuddin Tahir. Later on, he became the Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University too. And in this picture, you can see Nawab Chatari and Colonel Bashir Zaidi, who served as the headmaster of this university school also, and later on he became the Vice Chancellor also. And the person in the center with the glasses is Nawab Saradar Rampur. He was a Nawab of Rampur, and he also served as the Pro-Chancellor and Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University. Of course, as I said, we cannot cover the entire history, so just I gave you the glimpse of history through the picture. So our plan is to have a web series of these things, basically where we go in detail about few individuals or individuals who had made significant contribution to Muslim University and the educational cause of the community. We cannot basically end the story or talk about the story of AMU, history of AMU, without talking about Numaish. So we all have fond memories of Numaish, and we all know how we enjoyed every moment of Numaish. We used to go regularly. Of course, those days, 3 people on one bike just to save a few bucks, so that we can just put, and at least we used to do like park the cycle to McDonald Hostel a lot and then walk from there. So just to save a few bucks. Anyway, so this is a glimpse of Numaish. You can see nice korma and naan too. And basically, once again, I would like to thank you all for listening patiently basically on this talk. And I'm thankful to Dr. Rafat Hussain to put together this slide for me. And I'm thankful to the learned audience to listen to this. And inshallah, wait for that. We'll put a web series, the entire history of Aligarh. Try to basically as much as possible the history of Muslim University and the AMU College through pictures on the our web page and YouTube and Facebook. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, अफजाल. आपके अलावा ये कोई और काम नहीं कर सकता था. क्या जबरदस्त नॉलेज है आपकी.
थैंक यू रफत भाई और अफजाल, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. और हम अब आगे बढ़ते हैं. अगले हमारे मेहमान हैं डॉक्टर हिना नाजली, जो शिकागो से बिलोंग करती हैं. इब्तदाई तालीम पाकिस्तान से हासिल किया. पेशे से वो माहिर माशियात हैं और पाकिस्तान, कनाडा में काम कर चुकी हैं और अमेरिका में भी शिकागो में रहती हैं. इनका ख्वाब था कि अलीगढ़ मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी की वो देखा जाए. देखने का वो बहुत ख्वाहिश थी उनकी, जो उनकी ख्वाहिश पूरी हुई. शादी के बाद जो अपने शौहर डॉक्टर अतीक अहमद साहब के साथ वो जा चुकी हैं. आजकल वो अलीगढ़ अलमनाई एसोसिएशन ग्रेटर और शिकागो की सेक्रेटरी हैं. तो इससे पहले कि वो कई प्रोग्राम में हिस्सा ले चुकी हैं, जिसमें से वो मुझसे हुए हैं हम कलाम, सितारे ज़मीं पर और चिट्ठी आई है यूट्यूब पर आ चुकी हैं. आज यहाँ वो खत लेकर आई हैं हमें बताने के लिए कि ये खत में पैगाम किसका है. तो आज हम इनका इस्तकबाल करते हैं इस खता के साथ. वो आए होने हम सबसे हम कलाम, मुंतज़िर हैं हम भी होने इनसे हम कलाम. बन के आई सितारा ज़मीं पर चिट्ठी लेकर, खुशामदीद नवाजिश मेहरबानी कहते हैं हम सलाम. जनाब मोहतरमा डॉक्टर हिना नाजली साहिबा.
शुक्रिया भाई. आप सबको, सारे सुनने वालों और देखने वालों को जो है मेरा सलाम और आदाब. सबसे पहले तो मैं मुबारकबाद पेश करूंगी जनाब शाहिद भाई को और अफजाल भाई को, जिन्होंने इतनी अच्छी प्रेजेंटेशंस दी और जो है हमें टाइम का सफ़र करवाया और हमने बहुत कुछ जो है जाना इनकी प्रेजेंटेशन से। और अब मैं अपनी प्रेजेंटेशन शुरू करती हूँ। ये मेरे पास एक ख़त आया है जिसके मुखातिब वो तमाम लोग हैं जिनका अलीगढ़ तहरीक से कोई ना कोई ताल्लुक़ है, और ख़त सबके नाम है, और ख़त भेजने वाले का नाम सैयद अहमद ख़ान है। मैं आप लोगों के सामने इस ख़त को रीड करूँगी और आप लोग देखिएगा कि क्या इसमें से पैगाम निकलता है। तो शुरू करती हूँ। मेरे प्यारे बच्चों, सदा खुश रहो, शाद रहो, आबाद रहो। मेरा ये ख़त जब तुम्हें मिलेगा तो तुम लोग यूनिवर्सिटी की 7 साला तकरीबात के जश्न में मसरूफ़ होगे। यूनिवर्सिटी सजी हुई होगी, असातिज़ा और तलबा तकरीबात का इनाक़ाद भी कर रहे होंगे और शिरकत भी कर रहे होंगे। तुम सब लोगों को यूनिवर्सिटी का 7 साला जश्न बहुत बहुत मुबारक हो। एक छोटा सा पौधा मैंने लगाया था जो अब घना और सायादार दरख्त बन चुका है, जिसके खुशनुमा फूल सारी दुनिया में खुशबू फैला रहे हैं। 1875 में जब मैंने मदरसातुल उलूम की बुनियाद रखी तो सिर्फ 11 तालिब इल्म थे। गो के 1877 में ये कॉलेज बन गया, मगर लाख कोशिशों के बावजूद मैं इसको यूनिवर्सिटी का दर्जा ना दिला सका। मगर आफरीन है आने वाले इल्म के शहदाइयों पर, जिनकी मेहनत, लगन और कोशिशों से 1920 में यह इदारा यूनिवर्सिटी बन गया। आलिम और काबिल लोगों की सरपरस्ती में ये छोटा सा इदारा 100 साल के अरसे में कहाँ से कहाँ पहुँच गया। कौम के इन सपूतों की कोशिशों और जज्बों को मैं सलाम पेश करता हूँ। इस वक्त मेरी आंखों के सामने एक फिल्म सी चल रही है कि किस तरह मैंने अपने कुछ साथियों के हमरा यूनिवर्सिटी कायम करने का इरादा किया, किस तरह अलीगढ़ का मुकाम मुंतखब हुआ, कैसे ज़मीन हासिल की, कैसे कैसे जतन करके चंदा जमा किया और इमारत को बनवाने का काम शुरू हुआ। गर्ज ये कि 1875 से पहले इस इदारे को कायम करने के लिए जो मेहनत की गई है वो एक लंबी कहानी है, और उसका तस्करा भी शायद किसी दास्तान गोई के प्रोग्राम में बहुत ज़रूरी है। ये भी शुक्र है कि उस ज़माने में इंटरनेट और सोशल मीडिया नहीं था। अगर होता तो फेसबुक पे लोग शेयर कर रहे होते कि अगर आप चाहते हैं यूनिवर्सिटी बने तो लाइक करें। चंदा जमा करने के लिए हमें 1 मिलियन लाइक चाहिए, और लाइक तो शायद बहुत मिल जाते, मगर शायद चंदा ना मिलता। मुझे यकीन है कि इंस्टाग्राम और ट्विटर पे मेरे बहुत फॉलोअर्स होते, मगर शायद साथ चलने वाला कोई ना होता। जब यूनिवर्सिटी बन जाती तो लोग कमेंट करते कि 1 लाइक तो बनता है ना। मैंने अपने पिछले खत में बताया था कि हम लोग कंप्यूटर और इंग्लिश के कोर्सेज कर रहे हैं। अकबर अलाहाबादी हर बात कंप्यूटर की ज़ुबान में करते हैं। सोने के लिए जाते हैं तो शट डाउन हो जाते हैं, और उठते हैं तो बूट हो जाते हैं। किसी से मिलने जाएं तो कहते हैं मैं अपने हाथ से कट होकर आपके यहाँ पेस्ट हो गया हूँ, और जब हम उनको कुछ समझाने की कोशिश करें तो कहते हैं मुझे एडिट करने की तकलीफ ना करें, मैं रीड ओनली हूँ। और अगर किसी काम को उनको कह दें तो कहते हैं सॉरी, ये ऐप मुझ में इंस्टॉल्ड नहीं है। खैर, उनके किस्से सुनाने बैठा तो फिर मैं और कुछ नहीं कह पाऊंगा। हाँ, तो मैं बता रहा था कि हमें कंप्यूटर के कोर्स में एक असाइनमेंट मिली हुई है। बहुत मुश्किल है, कुछ समझ ही नहीं आ रहा क्या करूं। सोचा कि बाग की सैर कर लूं, तो मैं बाग की सैर को निकला कि दिमाग शायद तरोताज़ा हो और कुछ समझ आने लगे कि रास्ते में गालिब मिल गए। मैंने उनसे असाइनमेंट के बारे में पूछा तो बोले ये न थी हमारी किस्मत के असाइनमेंट तैयार होता, अगर यूं ही पढ़ते रहते तो गालिब बीमार होता। तो मालूम हुआ कि वो तो कोर्स ही ड्रॉप कर चुके हैं। उनसे मायूस होकर मैं आगे बढ़ा तो इकबाल मिल गए, जिन्हें तुम लोग अल्लामा इकबाल कहते हो। बहुत गुस्से में थे, माथे पे तेवरियां चढ़ी हुई थीं, बुड़बुड़ा भी रहे थे। मैंने खैरियत पूछी तो गोया फट पड़े, कहने लगे कि ये वक्त भी देखना था। ऐसे लहक लहक के ढोल बाजों के साथ शिकवा जवाब शिकवा गाया जा रहा है कि मानी और मफहूम तो मौसीकी और नाच में गुम हो गए हैं। क्या मैंने इसी दिन के लिए शायरी की थी? मैंने उनको तसल्ली देने की कोशिश की, मगर बेसूर। बहुत गुस्से में थे वो। मैं मायूस होकर घर लौट आया। बेगम इंतजार कर रही थी। अब तुम लोग पूछोगे, बेगम क्या मुझे हूरें नहीं मिली हुई? भाई, मेरी बात अच्छी तरह से जहन नशीन कर लो कि हूरों के लालच में कभी जन्नत तलब ना करना, बल्कि अपनी बीवियों की कदर करो, क्योंकि यही तुम्हारी जन्नत की हूरें हैं। आजकल सोशल मीडिया हमारे यहाँ भी मकबूल हो रहा है। कुछ दिन पहले हमें मालूम हुआ कि कोई चीज़ जूम आ गई है. हमने पूछा ये क्या है, तो अकबर अलाहाबादी बोले कि असल में ये जू है जिसके आखिर में एम लग गया है और एम से होता है मैं. यानी अगर कोई भी शख्स जू का हिस्सा बन जाए तो उसको जूम कहेंगे. हमने बहुत गौर से इस तशरीह को सुना और यकीन कर लिया. ये तो हमें बहुत बाद में मालूम हुआ कि आजकल जूम ही मिलने जुलने का जरिया है, क्योंकि दुनिया को कोविड-19 ने जकड़ा हुआ है और कोविड-19 में गिरफ्तार होकर लोग धड़ाधड़ तुम्हारी दुनिया से हमारी दुनिया में आ रहे हैं. और हमें तो परेशानी लाहक हो गई है कि अगर ये कोविड यहाँ भी फैल गया तो क्या होगा. हमें ये भी पता चला है कि आजकल दुनिया में बहुत सारे काम ऑनलाइन हो रहे हैं. वो मुलाकातें हो कि शादियाँ, खुशी हो कि रंज, दफ्तरी काम हो या पढ़ाई, सब कुछ ऑनलाइन हो गया है. एक तरह से अच्छा ही है, वरना तो कारोबारी जिंदगी बिल्कुल ठप होकर रह जाता. मगर उन तलबा का सोच के परेशानी होती है जिनके पास ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन की सहूलियात हासिल करने की इस्तात नहीं है. उनका तो साल ज़ाया हो सकता है. मगर खुशी इस बात की है कि तुम लोग दुनिया के जिस भी कोने में हो अपना फ़र्ज़ याद रखते हो और गरीब और नादार तलबा की इमदाद के लिए काम करते रहते हो. तालीम के फ़रोग़ के लिए तुम लोगों की खिदमत काबिल कदर हैं. यहाँ मैं एलुमनाई एसोसिएशन शिकागो का बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ, जिन्होंने इस मुश्किल वक्त में गरीब और नादार लड़कियों की तालीम जारी रखने के लिए एक बड़ी रकम अलीगढ़ यूनिवर्सिटी के वेमेंस कॉलेज को चंदा की और एक अजीमुशान मिसाल कायम की. शाबाश, तुम लोगों ने फ़ख्र से मेरा सर बुलंद कर दिया. मुझे उम्मीद है कि इस रकम का सही इस्तेमाल करते हुए मुस्तहिक लड़कियों तक ये इमदाद पहुँच गई होगी और उनकी तालीम बगैर किसी रुकावट के जारी होगी. मुझे अफसोस इस बात का है कि मैं अपनी ज़िंदगी में लड़कियों की तालीम के लिए चाहते हुए भी कुछ न कर पाया. सारी तवज्जो लड़कों की तालीम पर मरकूज़ रखी, क्योंकि मैं समझता था कि तालीम याफ्ता मर्द अपने घर की ख़वातीन की तालीम के लिए खुद हौसला अफजाई करेंगे. मैं शुक्रगुजार हूँ उन सब लोगों का, ख़ास तौर पे पापा मियाँ और बेगम सुल्तान जहाँ का, जिनकी कोशिशों से 1906 में अलीगढ़ में लड़कियों के लिए और मुझे ये जानकर बहुत खुशी हुई है कि लड़कियां हर मैदान में लड़कों के शाना बशाना तालीम भी हासिल कर रही हैं और काम भी कर रही हैं. मेरे प्यारे बच्चों, मैं तुम लोगों के काम और लगन से बहुत खुश हूँ, मगर यकीन जानो मेरी खुशी उस वक्त उदासी में बदल जाती है जब मैं तुम लोगों में नाइत्तफाकी देखता हूँ. कभी मजहब के नाम पे, कभी फ़िरक़े के नाम पे और कभी महज अना की खातिर तुम लोग अदावतों, रंजिशों और नफ़रतों पे उतर. ये तो अलीगढ़ तहरीक की तहजीब नहीं. इख्तलाफ राय ज़रूर रखो, मगर अना का मसला मत बनाओ. याद रखो, अदावतें और रंजिशें पालना तुम्हारे शाया निशान नहीं. इन्हें डिलीट करते रहो और मोहब्बतों को मल्टीप्लाई करते रहो. मैंने नोट किया है कि तुम लोग मेरी पुरानी तस्वीर इस्तेमाल करते हो, जिसमें मेरे लंबी सफ़ेद दाढ़ी है और सर पे लाल टोपी पहनी हुई है. यही तस्वीर हर जगह लगी हुई है और इस तस्वीर को देखकर लोग समझते हैं कि मैं बूढ़ा पैदा हुआ था, और इसी तस्वीर को देखकर बच्चे मुझे सेंटा क्लॉज समझते हैं. अरे मियाँ, ढूंढो, शायद मेरी जवानी की कोई तस्वीर मिल जाए, और अगर नहीं मिलती तो आजकल तो साइंस का ज़माना है, तरक्की का दौर है, कोई स्केच ही बनवा लो. अब मैं ख़त को ख़त्म करता हूँ. यूनिवर्सिटी के 7 साला जश्न को खूब जोश व खरोच से मनाओ, मगर तहजीब का दामन कभी हाथ से न छोड़ना. याद रखना कि तुम आने वाली नस्लों के रहनुमा हो. जो तुम उनको दोगे वो वही लेकर आगे बढ़ेंगे. आखिर में कलीम उस्मानी के चंद अशार तुम सबकी नज़र. मीरे कारवां हम थे, रूह कारवां तुम हो. हम तो सिर्फ उन्वां थे, असल दास्तां तुम हो. नफ़रतों के दरवाजे खुद पे बंद ही रखना. इल्म के इस परचम को सर बुलंद ही रखना. ये मिशन तुम्हारा है, तुम हो पासबां इसके. ये चमन तुम्हारा है, तुम हो नग़मा ख्वां इसके. बेशुमार दुआओं के साथ तुम सबका सैयद अहमद खान. शुक्रिया.
बहुत बहुत डॉक्टर हिना साहिबा. मैं अफजाल को देता हूँ माइक. अफजाल, कैरी ऑन.
Thank you, Akbar Bhai, and thank you, Dr. Hina Nazri Sahaba, for wonderful letter from Sir Syed, and we really enjoyed it. और उसके बाद मैं दरख्वास्त करूँगा हमारी एसोसिएशन के सेक्रेटरी इलेक्ट मोहम्मद जावेद साहब से कि वो आएँ और एसोसिएशन की तरफ से सबका शुक्रिया अदा करें. उसके बाद यूनिवर्सिटी का तराना होगा تو میں سب سے درخواست کروں گا کہ بس جوائن رہیں. محمد جاوید صاحب.
Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of Aligarh Alumni Association, Washington, D.C., I thank the organizers, participants, and attendees for making today's session of Centennial celebration a successful event. I thank Dr. Shahid Jamil Sahab for a very informative and insightful presentation on 100 years of science at AMU, especially providing us with details about various departments at AMU, esteemed personalities belonging to these departments, including department heads, builders of science, and recipients of various prestigious awards. I thank Dr. Rafat Hussain Sahab and Mr. Afzal Usmani for presenting us with a beautiful story of AMU through pictures. This comprehensive journey was very informative and made us all proud and nostalgic as well. And I thank Dr. Hina Nazli for presenting us with an awesome paigam from Sir Syed himself. It was well thought and beautifully written and had satire beautifully laid out in each and every sentence. Lastly, special thanks to Dr. Hashima Hassan, Dr. Syed Amir, and Dr. Muhammad Akbar for contributing to today's successful event. Please stay tuned for Aligarh Tarana.
Thank you, Jayad Bhai. Let me share the screen and start the Tarana.
अच्छा प्रोग्राम।
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आप सभी लोगों के इस प्रोग्राम को ज्वाइन करने का। इंशाल्लाह अगले हफ्ते फिर इसी वक्त मुलाकात होगी आप सभी लोगों से। तब तक के लिए इजाज़त दें। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। खुदा हाफिज़।